talking about building hot rods here. We're not talking about sugarcoating. We're talking about everything. Knuckle busting. The rust in your fucking eyes. We're talking about building fucking hot rods. All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to It's All About the Build podcast. You have me, Elliot Slack, and with me today, as usual, is the infamous Randy Bunting.
Hey, what's up, guys and gals?
And today, we are going to be diving into episode 6 here on the All About the Build podcast. The topic we were going to discuss is planning your build. Last week, we talked about what direction you should probably take your build, whether it was the custom side or whether it was the classic restoration nut and bolt, sticker goes here, sticker goes there, precision restoration. And we discussed some pros and cons of everything. If you didn't catch it, that's episode 5. But today, we want to discuss probably one of the most important aspects of a build before the build even starts. I know this might not be exciting to do or exciting to be talking about, but it has to be discussed because I feel that this is a extremely of high importance here.
This episode here is to keep your wife happy.
Yeah.
If you've been down that road, you know what I'm talking about.
Tell me, Randy, what are you talking about?
I mean, me personally, I don't think I've been down that road. Right.
I've heard the horror stories.
Yeah, I'm talking about not spending too much money on things that don't involve your significant other. Sometimes they get pretty upset about that. So we're going to kind of talk about, at some point, the budget side of things and kind of how you should plan it out around your budget, if you can. But we're also going to be talking about how to budget how to plan each aspect of the build, like the body and paint and the mechanical and the interior and electrical side of it. So, yeah, I think we'll kind of just start out with the body and paint because overall, the general scheme of the car is going to come down to, how the car looks and sits. Is it going to be painted? Is it going to be patinaed? Are you going to leave it patinaed? Or are you going to spend the time and actually do the body work, the mud work, and all that kind of stuff?
Well, I mean, let's face it. 98% of it's all about the fucking paint, Randy. It's all about what it looks like, Randy.
Well, for a lot of people, it is about the visuals, and then for a lot of people, it's also more about the mechanicals, and we're going to kind of go down both sides of that in a way.
Right. I was being facetious.
No, I know. I'm just...
No, I mean, there's a lot of places or a lot of people or whatever out there that, look, fancy-ass shit is going to win you awards. You could push the fucking car onto the stage and win the top high-tier fucking awards here. But we're not about that, and you shouldn't be about that either. So the planning aspect, step 1 is not get it into fucking paint and then figure out how to put the rest of it together. Let's just leave it at that.
No, when you're planning your car, I mean, there's a lot of things to look at that you probably don't even think about until the last few steps. And if you plan it right from the get-go, you have a less chance of
fucking it up,
of missing those.
Or putting holes in fresh paint. How about that?
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Or cutting fresh paint off. Or anything of the sort like that.
So to start out, like when you're doing an actual a plan list or a guideline or however you want to do it.
It could be on a piece of cardboard, for fuck's sake.
Yeah. Cardboard or white. I
like a whiteboard. You erase and add because you add a lot.
Right. Obviously you can use your phone. You have your notes on your phone or whatever. But I like a good old paper and pen. And
yeah.
and binding.
Right. Now, granted, metal and like if it's a rust bucket, that the first thing you need to do is fix all the fucking rust, obviously. But when you tear it down, you can have a pretty good idea of what things work and what things don't work. And writing it down will save you time and money and effort in the long run.
And not only that, like, are you fixing actual damage? Like, are you fixing dented roof, like a dented roof, or
replacing a floor?
Replacing a floor, yeah, anything like that. Are you able to get the replacement panels that you need versus making it?
Right. That's just for the body and paint side of things. And that's what our first topic is here, right, Randy? That's where we're headed. We're down the rabbit hole of the paint and body, right?
Yeah, and
because we want to discuss the paint and body, the mechanical, and then get into some interior and electrical, right?
Yep.
That's the topics we're doing today.
Mm-hmm.
But the big scheme of things is the planning aspect, and we're going to get into the possibilities of what could happen in these specific categories that we're talking about: the body and the paint and the mechanical and the interior and electrical. Realistically, paint shouldn't even be in the body and paint topic whenever you're looking at planning. Paint should be pretty much the very last thing outside of putting it all back together, because there's a little thing called the mock-up stage, and that's the most crucial part. You should literally have your whole car together before you tear it all back apart to get all the pieces and parts finalized. If you're
doing patina.
If you're doing like a full-blown build and you want to do it right, you want to make sure everything works and the fucking engine runs and everything like that before you stick it in the car.
And hell, before you even tear the car apart, try to get it running.
Right. Well, I guess that's what I meant. Before you stick it into a painted car, it should have already been in there. You should have known that it's going to fit this way or that way, and the whole 9 yards. Like you could wait to do the exhaust and shit like that, but as far as paint goes, that should be damn near your last fucking step before the final assembly.
But you have to, when planning that, you have to know whether or not you're going to do a full paint job or not, because budgeting what kind of paint you use, like if you're going to paint the car yourself, you may only be in it the materials and products that you use. If your budget is, if you need to outsource that and find somebody to paint the thing, that price that you have to add onto this bill is going to depend on who you get to paint it.
Mm-hmm.
So you need to budget your paint and clear, and if you're doing a red, it's going to be more expensive than something like I'm not really sure, but
probably a white or something like that.
White.
It's not anything crazy.
Nothing crazy.
Red, fucking hot rod flats.
Reds are probably going to be a pretty expensive paint to buy.
Well, let's face it, any paint nowadays, you're looking at hundreds of, if not thousands of dollars for gallons.
Unless you...
A gallon.
Yeah, right. Unless you find another way. Like the last car I painted, my own car, I actually bought my paint from Advanced Auto, and it was the stupid color, it was actually red, but I bought it. It was on sale for, I think, $12.99 for a quart. And it was a small quart, so I only bought, I think, 3 quarts.
$12.99, $12.99.
Yeah, it was on sale because they were getting rid of that color.
Right.
So if you get lucky and you find something that's on sale or going out of stock, you can pick something up pretty cheap.
Now, the only thing about that is buy an extra fucking quart.
Yes.
Just in case.
Because
if it's going out of stock.
Well, that's another reason, because I was doing a two-tone, so I ended up buying a quart of a gray to do the bottom part of it. So you're most likely going to need a gallon, most likely.
But I mean, if you're looking for high quality, high class, House of Color, PPG shit like that, I mean, you're looking at a pretty healthy price tag.
And probably maybe even sometimes up in the 1,000 range.
Oh, fuck
right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. Depending on what you're getting into.
Yeah.
But we're not going to go too crazy on painting and prices and shit like that. we have a whole nother episode for that stuff. But, if you're going to end up doing a patina build or something like that, your budget is going to become so much better. I mean, that's why a lot of people do it. It
just gets them on the road faster.
Yeah. I mean, they don't look too bad.
No, if you do it right.
There's a time and a place for them.
Yeah. Sometimes, I mean, God forbid I say this, but sometimes even the ones that are painted patina.
I mean, I don't mind. Like, there's a dude in Ohio who does an amazing. I wish I remembered his name. Excuse me, I need more beer. I wish I could remember his name, but his patina work is unbelievable. It even looks like textured.
Right.
Like, I'm not sure how he does it. I mean, if I sat down and really studied it, I'm sure there's a way that he manipulates the paint to be almost thick.
I'm sure there's a method to the madness.
Oh, fuck yeah.
Yeah. It's a top secret.
Right. Yeah, don't tell anybody. Heaven forbid, there's not 55 million fucking people that want a paint job.
Yeah.
That's the funny thing. Like, there's enough to go around.
Right.
Like, nobody's really your competition, so why the fuck are you keeping it from everybody?
Yeah, I mean, nowadays there's like so many people. There's so many shops and people doing this nowadays.
Yeah.
It's insane. There's
enough to share. There's enough to go around, man.
Yeah.
And that's why we're doing this. That's why we're doing this fucking podcast, to fucking at least try to, give some perspective here. I throw that perspective word around a lot, but you might not get a perspective like this because nobody wants to talk about this stuff, because this isn't the glitz and the glamour and the chrome and the paint and the shiny shit. So, but yeah, like Randy said about budgeting for the paint,
You also want to budget for materials.
I mean, you got to have a budget, period. I don't know if we said about that.
Well, we did, but
we started this episode over 4 or 5 times because whatever. So if we didn't mention budget yet, we did in deleted scenes. But the budget, if you're doing this on the side, obviously you're going to need a budget. Now, the thing about it is nowadays, if you're not doing all the work, that budget needs to be a hell of a lot bigger. Or maybe you could have a budget per year or per month type of deal.
Mm-hmm.
And having a plan is going to get you there quicker, because having this plan, if you need rust work and body work, when I say body work, I don't mean slinging mud and all that happy horse shit. I'm just talking about hammer and dolly work. I'm talking about cutting and pasting.
Welding.
Yeah, cutting and pasting, welding, fucking rusting your eyes, man.
Working on the actual body.
Yeah, working on the actual body. That's what I'm talking about. But you do have to think about the paint, I guess, at the very beginning, because you need to make sure you got 15, 20, 25, 30, $35,000 if you want to go crazy.
And if you're missing parts, you have to add that to your list too. If you have to go out and buy parts and source parts that you're missing, I mean, you're going to have to do that right away. Otherwise, you're not going to have a complete car to even put together.
Yeah, and if you're trying to go chrome, man, and your chrome is pitted and fucked up, and you need your trim to be polished and smooth and all that stuff, and you got some stuff going on with that, and you can't do it yourself.
It's expensive.
You got to put. We're talking 5 figures just to get your chrome and your polishing done. And that's on small chrome shit. That's not even on this Riviera that we have in the shop's going to be ridiculous, because we got chrome that wraps the whole son of a bitch.
Yep. And there's 50s cars in the early 60s. They had a lot of chrome.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it was.
There's chrome on chrome on chrome.
Yeah.
That 57 Imperial that was done when we were working together in that one shop.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that was $26,500, and that was chroming and shit, and we still had to polish.
That's crazy.
Yeah, and the funny thing was, when they sent everything out to chrome, nobody took pictures, because that's what they did. They didn't document anything. So whenever I was missing chrome pieces and needed to be put back on, I got the, we sent it back to you. Well, where's the pictures? They didn't give me pictures. We didn't have pictures. It was just he said, she said shit, and the chromer, he didn't care. I mean, that I gathered from a 30-second conversation I wasn't getting anywhere with this dude.
Right.
So these are things that need to be addressed at the very beginning of the budgeting and the plan. Because let's face it, the plan is to budget from the very beginning. So, if you're trying to do something crazy with the chassis and the rear end and the fucking engine and all that stuff, you can go get an LS or whatever. But let's face it, Randy.
There are a lot of things on top of that.
Right, correct. And we're going to get into that here in a second. But, as far as the body goes, we got to talk about glass here. Depending on what glass you got, even the rubbers, man. Every car you have to plan for the rubbers and the seals.
And that's especially when you don't have glass, because most likely you don't have the rubbers either, unless you get lucky. But even if you had the rubbers, you just get rid of the fucking. Just get rid of them. Just get new rubbers, and if you aren't working on the right car, they're pretty cheap from certain websites like LMC if you're working on a truck or original.
What's the rubber place? There's like
the steel rubber.
Yeah, steel rubber. You can find some stuff like that.
Original Parts Group.
Mm-hmm. If you're working on a specific
Luddy, Chevy, anything like that.
Pony parts, Ford shit, stuff like that. But more than likely, when you take that glass out, the easiest way to get the glass out is stick a knife in the side of it and fucking just cut the fucking rubber off and pull the glass out. Instead of sitting there trying to smack it out if it's fucking dry rotted and shit like that.
Yeah.
If you save the rubber, congratulations. Throw it the fuck away anyways.
Right. There's no point in saving that. And if you're lucky, you might have not or uncracked glass as well.
Yeah.
If you're lucky.
Now, okay, so I did run into a situation, if we're talking about windows and shit and rubbers, I did run into a situation where I was working on this 66 Chevy pickup truck, right? But the guy didn't want me to replace the rubber, so I literally, the fucking water just comes down in the corner because the rubber was literally split. There was like a 1/4 inch down in each corner that was split wide open. I'm like, you need new rubbers. He wasn't going to do it. He's like, there's got to be a way that you can reseal it. I was like, by the time we're all done, me trying to figure it out, I'm probably going to spend just as much money if I pull it out and put a new fucking rubber in it, right?
Yeah,
but sometimes people are adamant about stuff, man.
If you don't realize how much time and effort something actually takes, it's much more worth it just to get the new part.
Right. But the reason I'm telling you this is because this fucking worked. And, some people might not want to take it out.
Okay.
Patina, you know what I mean?
Yeah. So
I got this shit called window weld. 3M makes it. The window weld.
Oh, I love that stuff.
Yeah. The only thing is it's like, so this comes in a tube. And you put it in the old fucking caulking gun, and this shit is amazing. You can glue shit together with this stuff pretty much. But like I said, 3M sells it in a white tube, fucking red lettering, fucking red lettered, black letters, whatever. But I taped the whole way around this fucking thing. On the windshield and on the outside, down around the cowl, up around the A pillars and up and across. And I came in and I fucking ran that stuff and filled in those holes and gaps and ended up peeling that stuff back off, man. And I'm telling you, it was amazing. You could get away with it. It looked great. Don't get me wrong.
Sometimes you can actually sand it down.
Yes, correct.
Yeah.
I'm just going to say take some... you can't go too fine because that shit will just fucking gum up.
Right.
If it's still sloppy.
Yeah.
But...
you can make it look natural.
Yeah. You can pass the eye test.
Right.
You can pass the 20-footer test all day long. But that's what I did with it. So there are some techniques that you can do if you're doing patina work to save like what's going on with the rubbers and shit like that. But like if you need cat whiskers and all that stuff, if you're not familiar with the term cat whiskers, it's the channel, like the U channels and stuff for inside the windows and the tracks and where your window goes up and down. what it rides on inside the door, that's your cat whiskers. That's what I mean when I say cat whiskers. That's a little lingity for you. But if you need glass, if you have a glass guy and you have flat glass, I think we discussed this in one of the other episodes, like that's the way to do it. But if you got curved glass or anything of the sort, I mean, you're looking at $500-$600 for a single fucking windshield. And if you want to go crazy and you want to do the new age stuff,
flush mount,
the flush mount glass, you know, I'm pricing it right now, and we're looking at thousands and thousands of dollars to go the whole way around your fucking, to go around everything.
Yeah, it's pretty wild.
Mm-hmm. These are just things you need to look for when we're talking budgets. Same thing with chassis or suspension or fucking brake packages. You know, the more research you do in the beginning, the better idea of what you're getting yourself into. So you can budget for this shit. You know, like first things first, you know, figure out if shit's running and driving. You know, if it is, it's great. So it's easier that way. But if it's just a fucking rust bucket or a non-runner or whatever, you have to tear everything down, and you got to document, and you got to plan. That being said, you know, we talked about running the paint, doing the body work and all that stuff. You know, if you're not doing it yourself, you're going to have to send it out to somebody, and depending on how they do it, it could become costly. And depending on how much structural integrity needs to be worked over, you could be in the body stage for a long time. You know, I mean, let's face it, a lot of times these builds, half the fucking money goes just to metal work, rust repair, body labor, before you even get anywhere else.
And while you're doing all that, you also have to think about, you know, what are we going to do as far as engine and transmission or rear end? Mm-hmm. And most likely, unless you're doing a full-blown, you know, frame-off restoration, you might, if you just want to get the thing running, you might want to think about it. Well, if you do have a running engine, what can I get away with just getting it drivable, streetable? Can I get away with spark plugs and wires and distributor cap and rotor and all that jazz?
Yeah, new coil.
Or as far as the rear end goes, most likely you're going to need to do rear seals. They're most likely going to be just caked on the inside of your drum, you know.
You should do, you know, to get into the bearings, the races, you know, you should be really looking into everything, you know.
Because most likely they're going to be decades old, so
it could probably be fucking like toothpaste pancake in there.
Yeah, and you don't want to be driving down a road like that because you never know what's going to happen. So you definitely want to tear that apart. And at least if it's going to be just a basic little, you know, fresh and tune kind of thing, definitely want to pull those seals out and the bearings out and replace those. Get new gear oil in there. Sometimes if you want to change the gear ratio, swap all those out and you can change the gasket and all that kind of stuff. But you know, as a transmission work and drain the transmission fluid if it's an automatic or a manual. You can do, if it's an automatic, you can do a transmission filter, and most likely the rear seal is leaking on that too, so you might as well replace that.
Yeah, so it's got one of them bullets that holds the transmission speedo, that speedometer fucking gear that goes in.
Oh, they always leak.
They always leak. So finding one of those is a fucking needle in a haystack.
Yeah.
Sometimes. So these are little things you got to remember. You got to be looking into. You know, just, oh yeah, I need to do the transmission. Well, yeah, just like Randy said, yeah, you need to do transmission, but you need a transmission filter. You need seals for the damn thing.
That's if it doesn't completely need rebuilt.
Mm-hmm.
If you're using that transmission, or if you have to find another transmission that maybe you're looking for in place of what you have for more, you know, better reliability or drivability on the highway or whatever the situation is. Even, I mean, if you're buying a used transmission to replace that, or if you even don't have a transmission and you're buying a transmission, you don't know where that transmission, you know, has been. So,
well, let's say you're getting a new transmission. Let's say you're keeping the engine, but you're changing out the transmission. Okay, it's all fucking fine and dandy. But let's face it, You go from an automatic to a manual or a manual to an automatic, you're looking at completely different lengths of fucking transmissions, more than likely.
Yeah, so you
got to look at getting a new damn drive shaft.
Yep, and sometimes, depending on the situation, you might have to change the yoke or the U joints. You might have to get different U joints for that.
Depending on the spline system and everything. I mean,
yep.
You're probably more than likely, if you're lucky, it's welded and it can be cut and fucking a new one be welded on. If you're shortening it, if you're lengthening it, you're fucked.
Yeah, you have to get a new one or find one out of a junkyard or something like that and cut that one down and replace the U joints to match and the yoke to match.
Yeah, and if maybe it's a 2-piece, maybe you're doing a truck, so now you got to have a new carrier bearing.
Right.
And these are all fucking, and more than likely, if a carrier bearing, I mean, just get a new fucking carrier bearing.
Yeah, and sometimes you might even get into doing electronic transmissions like a 6L80 or something like that. Well, they actually do a slip yoke, so or a slip drive shaft. So you might have to change your drive shaft design completely just to make that work.
Yeah, and if you're changing suspension and shit like that, I mean, you're looking at all that all over again. You know, making shit fit. Like if you okay, a lot of people want the big wheel and tire package. You know, whether it's big trucks or down in the weeds, you still want some depth and shit on your offset and all that stuff. So when you're doing body work, if you don't have this shit planned out and you decide that this is what you want, or you go out and you just buy fucking tires and wheels and you didn't do the right
measurements,
yep. You're shortening, you're narrowing a rear end 4.5 fucking inches like we just did on that 67.
You're wasting a lot of money doing it like that.
Yeah. I mean, that was ridiculous, and that was all due to piss poor planning. Because if you got to remember, if you're getting a frame and chassis from somebody, and they're doing the whole build, and if you can just give them the rear end and everything like that, you need to give them the rear end width, and you're getting one-off custom wheel and tire package. You need to make sure your offset is going to match what's going on with the rear end, or you're sitting 2 inches outside the fucking bed of the truck because your offset was wrong. So you've just paid all this money for a frame and chassis, for a rear end, for the whole brake package to fit inside your fucking wheels, and now we have to narrow it. And luckily we didn't have to narrow it too much, or else we were going to be running into the shock mounts and shit of that fucking nature.
And that was a prefab product from a
big name company,
and you know, it wasn't their fault. It was the people setting it up, which, you know, that's all it comes down to. It's just
there's three hands in a pot. There was the guy who took the measurements, who was the builder, who called the fucking wheel and tire package, well, the wheel guy, to make him custom wheels, who then had to call the fucking chassis dude to build him a chassis.
And this is stuff we deal with every day.
Yeah.
And while we're talking about the rear end, I want to talk about your brake situation. And contrary to belief, you should really be replacing every part of that brake system, unless it's only like, I'd say 15 years old or so. But
you still want to go through it.
You still want to go through it. But if you're working on like a 1967 Camaro or truck or whatever,
let's hope it's a Camaro.
Yeah, let's hope it's a Camaro. Good for you if it's a Camaro. When you're looking at the master cylinder and it looks kind of rusty, and you're looking at your brake lines and they're looking kind of rough, and you're thinking, you know, does this look okay? You're on the fence. Well, I'm just going to tell you, just replace it, because it's going to save you from running into the rear end of somebody going down the road.
Right. Even if it's drums. Even if you're keeping drums or whatever.
If you're keeping that, you can keep if the drums themselves look fine, and you take the drums off and you're looking at all the hardware and everything, as long as they're not rusted and half falling apart and the springs aren't falling apart, you might be okay. But for how long, who knows?
You should probably at least take everything the fuck apart and clean it.
Take it all apart and clean it and lube everything up. And like I said, when you're looking at the master cylinder and it's looking a little rough and you got dirty fluid in it, just take it off and replace it because it's going to save yourself headaches down the road.
Well, 9 times out of 10 with these older things, that if they were sitting in a field or whatever and you start driving them and you hit the brakes,
everything's dry rotted.
Everything's dry. You're going to start getting, you're more than likely, if there's drums, you're going to start getting fucking seepage because that cylinder system that's inside the drum there, you're more than likely fucking leaking.
If anything, it's okay just to get it, just driving down the road just to see if the thing's going to work right, if the car is going to run right, or what, if the engine's running and you just want to see if it's going to drive okay, fine, whatever. Go down the road with it like that, but don't leave it that way and think you're finishing your build with a rusty ass, dirty ass
brake system. Yeah, and if you don't fucking know what you're looking at, ask somebody.
Yes, and do your research.
Yeah, because you need to adjust that shit. Okay, unless you're dealing with something from the fucking 30s or before, prior to, they don't even have brake fluid. You're talking about a mechanical system that you probably have no fucking idea what you're looking at, and you got to make, literally, you got to do your research and find out that you got to do 4 different fucking things before you can adjust the drum setup in the back. Like literally a step-by-step procedure like that Auburn I worked on. There was literally like 3 steps I had to do leading the whole way up till I can finally adjust the brakes inside the system. It was ridiculous. You had to come off the brake and come into this rocker system that they had that pushed another direction that went all the way back to the ass end and to the front and back to the back and back to the other front because there's fucking 4 tires on the son of a bitch. And it was the wildest brake adjustment I've ever done in my life.
So if you need to do Auburn brakes, just ask Elliot.
Yeah. I'll tell you where to buy the fucking book. How about that? 'Cause,
yeah, there you go.
Yeah. But these are things you got to think about.
Yeah, just
because they're on there and you think they're working doesn't mean they're fucking working. I tell you what, you can be like that dude on TV. The fucking, you ready for the brake check?
Oh yeah.
3, 2, 1, fucking.
Yeah.
Get out. That one there is sticking. No shit. It's sticking. Now you need fucking 3 new tires because you got flat spots. Like, it's good for television, I guess. If you can't drive down the road, look, when you're adjusting brakes, now you got me fired the fuck up. When you're adjusting brakes, just drive down the fucking road and hit the brakes. Like, you can get on them a little bit. I'm not talking about slamming on the fucking brakes and seeing if you start going a little sideways.
All you gotta do is just ease a little harder, ease into it a little harder, ease into it. And
fucking ease into it. You can feel it pulling one way or the other.
Yep. Uh-huh.
If you've ever driven a fucking car, you know, like, oh, feels like my left ass cheek's tugging a little bit, or my left front fucking foot's tugging a little bit. You know what I mean? Like, you can feel this stuff.
And if you're going to be buying parts for your brake system, don't just buy any size master cylinder, any size caliper, any size brake line that you can just pick off a shelf. Everything's designed a certain way. You have to do your research and figure out what size you need for your system to work properly.
Here's a fucking shocker for everybody out there in the fucking la la land. Willwoods don't even make a brake booster. Think about that for a second. Let that sink in, what I just said. Let me repeat what I just said. Willwood Brake Company, everybody's seen the Willwoods out there, does not make a brake booster. And if it hasn't sunk in completely, let me fucking tell you what I'm talking about. So this company runs off of all mechanical braking, okay?
That's how they design their systems.
That's how they've designed their systems, yes.
Yeah.
If you get the correct measurements of the piston, how many pistons you have in the brake system, you get the correct outside diameters of that bullshit, and you take the measurement off of your brake pedal to get the fulcrum or the leverage off the motherfucker, you get all these measurements, and you tell them, they'll tell you exactly what bore size you're supposed to have, and you will not have a brake booster because if you have a Willwood system with a brake booster, you're fucking lazy. I don't know what else to say. I'm fucking guilty of it because I didn't know any better.
Yeah, I mean,
early in my career, I didn't know any better.
It's one of those things that people just you feel like you always have to have a brake booster, no matter what.
Yeah.
When in reality, it's not about that. It's more about leverage, and certain brake kits design their systems so you don't need a brake booster. Most of the time, they're race companies. Most race cars don't have brake boosters, so that's how they design their systems. But
if you need any questions with that, just call Willwood.
Yeah, they'll tell you everything you need.
And the beauty of it is it cleans up a hell of a lot of fucking engine bay than having some big turd ball fucking brake booster.
Mm-hmm.
Even if you get the small brake booster, which, depending on your brake system, you might need the bigger fucking booster. But that's enough damn talk about brakes. Let's move on.
Yeah.
So, I guess next in line would be, we're at the brakes, and now we're heading into the rest of the suspension and that nature. So, Randy, what do you want to talk about as far as the suspension and whatever?
Yeah, so when you're looking at your suspension and it's, rusty and more rust, what you want to do is take a look at your struts and your shocks and your leaf spring mounts and all that kind of stuff, and decide whether or not you have to replace any of that. Most likely you do, so you want to figure out what kind of shocks you need to replace those, and
they should be written on the motherfuckers, so that shouldn't be too difficult.
If you get lucky.
Uh-huh.
And then
if not, you can take them off and get the measurements.
Yeah, you want the compressed measurement and extended measurement, and then the middle of that is the measurement that you should be buying.
Yeah.
But then after that, you want to check out your steering. So this is probably one of the most important parts of your build, other than your brakes, because if you don't have steering, then you don't have a car going down the road.
Well, if the steering isn't dialed in, then you get what's called bump steer.
Bump steer, you have a death wobble, anything like that. If it's really loose, you
could be walking all over the place.
Yes, and that's
especially if your tie rod ends are fucked up and shit of that nature.
And when you're driving an old car and you get that looseness steering going down a road, that's what I'm talking about.
Yeah, where it takes fucking. If you're looking at the hands of a clock, it takes to 3:30 before the motherfucker starts turning right.
Yeah. And that's a lot of fun because it's like a game. It's like,
yeah.
How well can I keep this on the road?
Right.
But you definitely want to change the tie rod ends and the ball joints. Make sure your steering's nice and tight.
Pretty much all the rubbers are going to be shot. So not only that, your body mounts.
But yes, body mounts.
Engine mounts if they're rubber.
Control arm bushings, anything like that. If rear trailing arm bushings, anything suspension related, you're most likely going to have to replace because it's going to be dry rotted and cracked and falling apart.
And if you're looking to just drive the damn thing right now, if it's feasible to drive or whatever, grease the fucking thing.
Yeah,
please.
Grease everything.
You'd be surprised what grease can do to an old fucking car.
Right? Yeah.
It can tighten up a lot.
Everyone's afraid to grease for some reason, like it's too messy or something like that. Just you can get a grease gun from Harbor Freight for a couple bucks.
You can get the mini ones, man. It's
the mini ones,
6-ounce tubes, man.
Right. Go up there, go over there, and you take the grease gun, you take the end, you stick it on the fitting, and you pump it up a couple times. Sometimes, most likely you're going to see it coming out the other end, but that's fine.
If it don't fucking come out, you can literally take a fucking toothpick. Well, not a toothpick, but you can take the tip of whatever point you got and push on the ball a little bit, and a lot of times it'll break free.
If you see the grease pushing out the end of the tip, then it's not going into the fitting. So
right.
then
just
you can
squirting the fuck back out.
Yeah.
More than likely the ball's stuck. But I mean, this is preventative maintenance 101 that nobody fucking does. Even with the Chevy pickup truck that I have for the shop, that we have for the shop, the one that I fucking bought before coming from Tennessee, first thing I did with that, it's a 2000. Had 120 fucking thousand miles on it. First thing I did with it, the very first thing I did with it was crawl it and grease it. And guess how much grease was in it?
None.
However fucking much was in it from the factory, pretty much. Ain't nobody ever touched that stuff. Hell, some of them still had the little cap on it.
Speaking of steering, like you might have to look into whether or not you need a new steering column, a steering box, something like, the steering box could be loose. You might have to replace that. If it's power steering, you might have to look into power steering lines and all that kind of stuff. But you might be looking into a steering column depending on how your build is going to go. You might want to look at a custom steering column or something like that. If you have
I did it. Flaming River.
Yeah, I did it. Flaming River. That's the biggest two you can buy.
Yeah. I mean, you can get, don't get me wrong, you can get some knockoffs off of fucking eBay that are cheap, but 9 times out of 10, if it's depending on if it's like a GM platform and the shifter's up in the column itself, something's gonna be fucked up.
Yeah,
Cord ain't gonna work. Wiring's jacked off.
If it's an older car, and it's a manual or an automatic, your shifter is actually going to be on the column. So if you're going to be replacing that and your car's a manual, you might want to look into a floor shifter. Keep that in mind.
Not only that, you're talking about the shifter on a column. Some of those old style shifters, the way that you put that in through the floor, they have a hole cut out in the floor for the shifter rod to slide down in.
Right.
So you got a hole, but then you got this fucking 3-inch dick hole sticking off the side. I don't know how else to describe it, that it goes through. And if you change that out and you paint the whole fucking truck or car or whatever, you got the 3-inch dick hole now you're just staring at that you need to clean up.
Yeah.
That goes out to the planning with the body. If you knew you were going to buy a column, if you were going to change the shifter to the floor of some sort or whatever, to weld that hole up.
Yeah, so plan that ahead, big time.
Right.
Otherwise, you're welding into
fresh
paint or cutting into fresh paint, and you got to touch it all up.
You got carpet in the way.
Just know what you want to do ahead of time and stick with it.
Right.
That also goes for like your fuel lines and your radiator hoses, stuff like that. That all is going to need replaced, and most likely it's going to need a new fuel tank as well, because it's most likely rusted inside there and rusted lines and all that kind of jazz. So you're going to want to look into replacing all the fuel lines, a new fuel tank, new sending unit, all that.
Now, if you look in the fuel tank and it looks good, like if you have something you can look down into and it looks good, then it looks good.
Yeah, then you can use that tank. That's fine.
When you crack the fucking lines off, the fuel lines, and it looks like fuel, and it doesn't look like fucking dust and dirt and nasty shit and smell of lacquer thinner. And
if it's not as clean as you'd like, you can get away with actually there's kits you can buy that actually coat the inside of the tank. You can do a coating that you actually like rotate the tank around so you coat the whole thing.
I've actually been a part of companies that I think I've been a part of doing 4 or 5 of those fuckers now. So it's feasible if it's still together and everything. You're good to go, man.
Yeah, and I have no experience with like long-term effects of that, like tank coating.
These were going in some high-end restorations because I've heard to keep they didn't make that fucking tank anymore.
Right, so. I've heard of good things. Just research the product you're looking at, but that is an option for you. But I would definitely want to make sure you replace all the lines needed and rubbers needed that go up to the carburetor. And make sure you definitely, either way, no matter what, change your fuel filter because it's going to be dirty most likely.
Well, vacuum lines is like the number 2 thing to do.
Right. Save yourself a headache and just change the vacuum lines.
Yeah, because you got the rubber fittings that run from the engine to the frame. A lot of people don't believe in solid mount lines from point A to point B. So they put in a flex line somewhere down the line.
Yeah.
So those are the ones you're going to want to shoot for and look at and get rid of.
Same with the radiator hoses. And check on your radiator, make sure it's sealing and not leaking.
Yeah.
That's the worst, one of the... I'd hate for you to put everything together and you're using the same radiators as it was in there when you bought it, and you get the engine hot and it's starting to leak out the fins, and you're like, oh shit, and you got to take it all, everything about it. You got to drain the whole coolant system and take it out and replace it anyway.
Yeah, because you're going to wait.
You're going
to wait and be like, maybe it'll magically seal itself up, so it's going to drip in your fucking house for 3 days, whatever it's at, 3 or 4 days, or maybe even like 3 or 4 weeks from now, because you're just disgusted with it.
And you can find yourself a radiator shop nearby, and you can actually bring it to them, and they can pressure test it and everything like that.
Yeah, they'll fix it for you.
And they'll weld it together for you too.
Solder it, whatever the fuck they're gonna do, depending on what route,
what it's made of.
Yeah, what it's made of. I think we've touched on pretty much everything as far as the mechanical side of things go, I believe.
Yeah, next we want to talk about the interior and the electrical side of things.
This will be the third and last topic we want to get into here.
If you're going to be doing like a full build and you want a nice interior, there's going to be a lot of things to keep in mind as far as pricing goes and materials and things like that. If you're doing a full leather job, if you're replacing a bunch of trim inside there, a bunch of knobs, and finding a radio and things like that.
They have some pretty nice radios nowadays that are all Bluetooth, but they look all old school and everything like that. I think it's classic.
There's retro sound.
That might be what I'm thinking.
And there's classic. I know what you're
classic
talking about.
Audio or something like that. Maybe?
Yeah, something like that. I can't remember exactly off the top of my head.
But they got some nice stuff out there that you can buy that is like a GM platform or a Ford platform or whatever.
Ford, Chevy, Mopar, whatever. They have a lot of different options nowadays.
Yeah,
and it's Bluetooth, which is nice.
Mm-hmm. They have things now. You got the hideaway antenna, which is nice, that you put up underneath your dash or wherever you can put it. You still want the stock antenna, but you don't want to run the damn thing, because let's face it, that antenna line coming in is solid as a rock. It's rubber, but that motherfucker is solid as a rock, and it ain't bending or twisting without cracking and disintegrating. Not just the radio, but more likely your speakers are going to be shot. The paper on the speakers are going to be junk. If you're trying to go all stock, you can actually get those speakers rebuilt. There's companies out there that will actually rebuild what you have and put the old school paper shit inside and give you back what you started with. I've done it in the past numerous times now. I believe another company out in California, I can't remember them off the top of my head, but just know that it's out there, and if that's the route you're trying to go, that's where it's at. But also, interior-wise, if you have something, if you're putting newer seats in, you can go to a company like Cat Skins, where you can take off the old leather. Like, let's say, I know a lot of guys do like the, 08s, 2000s GTO seats.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
There's a lot of people that are doing stuff like that. And you can buy those seats and take off the old leather, and you can buy leather seats or new covers for them that you can actually put on yourself. The company's called Catskin. I don't know if you've heard of that, Randy, or not.
I don't think I have.
They make a lot of stuff for newer vehicles. I know my brother-in-law, he just did one for his fucking 18 Ford F-350 or something like that.
Okay.
It's pretty sweet. You can get them custom made. There's different other brands out there, but the Catskin brand was pretty good from what my understanding is. But we did that Model T, that 25 Model T. We redid that whole interior for like $1,200.
Oh, wow.
And that was a brand new headliner. That was the actual fabric on top that goes on top of the damn car.
Right.
And that was the seats in the back and the seats up front. We just had to pull them off and recover them. You can save a lot of money doing it yourself. That's just like these C10s that we got. What is that? TMP or
TMI.
TMI?
Yeah, TMI.
Hell, you can buy the fucking seat with the damn brand new frame for it and everything. It shows up at your house and you just put it in.
Yep.
It's stitched and everything for you.
And depending on the vehicle, you can buy door panels, dash pad, headliner.
You can go custom big time.
Yeah, a center console, everything like that.
Yeah, which is nice. I think that Buick Riviera, I believe you can get all... Like, you can't get anything for this fucking car, but for some reason you can get, like, the whole interior.
Well, at least that's something.
Yeah, right? But I know if you're trying to go full-blown custom or whatever, you can mix and match and do whatever you want. Like, when I've worked with full-blown 8-way power seats with heat and fucking cold seats in them, you can put that stuff in whatever, man.
Yeah, you can get pretty creative. You can go on eBay or Facebook and find some seats that you think would look okay in your car and something that might work for your car. And if you're good at wiring or good at upholstery or good at sewing, you can make something pretty nice for yourself.
Nowadays, in modern styling, there's not a whole lot of stitch work going on.
Right.
You might have a stitch that goes across the dash somewhere. You might have stitch work obviously on the steering wheel. But the only other fucking stitch work you got is the seats.
Yeah.
But a lot of wrap. So wrapping anything is not as difficult as what you might think it is. You'd be surprised what that damn contact cement will do into some triangulated snips here and there in fabric. What you can get away with. Hell, you can even get the Gorilla Glue fucking spray shit. But they literally, you can go to any parts store and it literally says interior automotive adhesive.
Right.
It's in a rattle can.
Yep.
And if you don't want that, go down to Home Depot and fucking buy the gallon thing. It says contact cement. It's like, I think it's orange or red and blue, something like that. Maybe it's red and black. I don't fucking know. Anyways, it's just contact cement. You can get it at Home Depot and you just wipe that shit on, tack it up, and then, go from there. That also includes the carpet. You got to remember when you're planning this build out and you're like, yeah, I'll replace the interior. Okay, that's all fine and dandy, but your interior also is going to detail sound deadening. On top of that, in certain locations, you want heat deadening. You want temperature control shit. And then on top of that, you need carpet. Now, you can buy carpet that has the heat shield on it already. But if you're also going for stock, that god-awful fucking cardboard shit on the firewall with the tits that stick through the damn firewall and are just hanging out on the other end. Everybody wants to... You got to remember, if you're buying carpet...
Tell us how you really feel there, Elliot.
Yeah. Well, if you're buying carpet and you're not custom making carpet, like if you buy carpet, it's only going to go up to where your feet go.
Right.
And then it's expecting you to have that ugly-ass cardboard shit.
I've done some extra carpet up in that area.
Oh, fuck yeah.
Yeah.
No, I almost prefer getting just one big piece of carpet and just making it fit.
Yeah. You can use, like, heat and steam to get it to form to certain contours.
Depending on which carpet you get. Some carpet's stiffer than hell.
Right.
But if you're working with some old-ass shit, like you're getting Model Ts and Model As and stuff, I mean, you're stepping on the floor. You don't even need carpet. Mm-hmm. At that point in time, if you're redoing stuff, get that wood out of there and sand it off and restain that shit, man. Make it look good. That's another thing. Like, when you're doing this stuff underneath, like, yeah, paint and body and all that stuff is all fine and dandy, but you got to remember you're trying to seal off and protect everything underneath. And a lot of guys are going rhino lining or raptor lining or spray-in bed liner, whatever, roll-on bed liner, whatever. You can use a shitload of product under there, but you got to make sure you're willing to put a couple $100 back for all that bullshit. But interior-wise, you got to remember everybody always forgets to price out for seat belts, or make sure you know where the holes are for the damn seat belts when you're doing fucking carpet and all that stuff.
Yeah. Don't forget to mark those, and then you could actually punch through it and actually burn a hole into it where the bolts go through. That's one thing that you have to keep in mind when you're doing carpet is when you're putting bolts and screws through it, when you're doing like trim or door sills or shifter trim or something like that, you have to remember that you're putting a screw through the weaving of the carpet.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're not careful, it'll
bite.
It'll pull that weaving right out, and then you have a line.
6-inch piece of carpet that disappeared, and it sticks out like a sore fucking thumb.
Oh yeah.
And if you're not, I mean, you're pretty much screwed. I mean, you can get away with some stuff, but if that guy's going to drive that thing or whatever, I mean, you're sitting there just staring at something.
And if it's really bad, you're pulling that carpet out and you're buying a new one.
Yeah, that's a great fucking point you brought up there, Randall. And an easy way to get around stuff like that, you can actually take a little torch, and if you got like go to Harbor Freight and buy one of them fucking 99-cent pack of 4 picks. There's like a 90-degree pick, 180 pick, a straight pick, and then a crookedy pick. Yeah. Anyways, you can take that straight pick and heat the fuck out of the end of that son of a bitch, and it'll push right through that. It'll push,
and it'll cinch the edges.
Yeah, it'll singe the edges and seal them off, so you can put a screw through that, and it's not going to catch and fucking do what Randy was talking about. And even if, let's say you're coming through a big bolt hole for the seat, or surprisingly enough, it's actually a pretty damn big screw or a bolt for your seat belt, so you can get away with doing a screwdriver head for that shit.
Oh yeah.
So there's a couple of tips, just the tips for you. Another thing you want to think about when we're talking about interior wise, before we start down the electrical spiral, is what kind of accessories you're going to do inside that car. If you're going to put more different dome lights, interior lighting, AC and heat, all sorts of shit. If you want cup holders, planning ahead for all this stuff is going to be huge, because there's no sense in going out and buying a brand new glove box if you're sticking an AC system in behind it. That's going to take it all up.
Yeah, because you're going to have to do a shallower glove box liner in there.
A lot of people just don't even bother with it.
Right.
Now, we rebuild all our liners. We make them from scratch just to have something in there.
Yeah, if you can get creative too. You can, if you're doing like an updated AC system, like vintage air or Restum Out Air system in there, you can, and you have to do a shallower glove box liner. You can get creative and do pouches for your insurance papers and all that kind of stuff.
Right, but I mean, you got to remember, if you're doing vintage air and you're doing any vehicle outside of the mid to late 60s, I mean, AC wasn't around prior to. So if you're doing body work and if you're doing interior wise, and you want to make a filler panel, that way you don't just have these 2 random round things. Like, granted, when you buy these AC systems and stuff, they give you a beauty ring, I guess, to support where these vents are coming out. But if you want it to look good and custom and shit, a lot of times you're going to be adding underneath the existing dash. That way a filler panel comes across there and you can tie all this stuff in. And if you forget about that, and you don't want to be trying to build when you got paint on everything and you got interior inside and the whole 9 yards.
Yeah, because then you got to start drilling and sometimes even welding, and you got carpet in there. You have to do welding blankets and anything to protect everything from sparks or hot metal shavings that get hooked into your carpet.
Mm-hmm. Well, not only that, you got fucking windows and shit in there too. I mean, you know, one spark hits a window, a windshield, a window, whatever, glass, in general, you're fucked.
Yeah, it's going to bug the hell out of you.
Yeah, you're going to have a spot, and it's going to look like shit. You know, it's going to look like there's a turd on it for the rest of its life.
If you're welding around glass, just cover the glass with weld protectant covers.
Right. But to round off pretty much this whole escapade, on your planning list, it should have on there in big bold letters, upgrade wiring.
Yeah.
That should be a massive thing. So if you're up, you know, you don't have to go crazy and buy $1,500 worth of gauges. You can get away with just whatever old school mechanical gauges. I mean, even some electrical gauges and shit, you can get away with not spending a whole bunch of money. But if you're not going top notch, then you need to have wiring that's going to act appropriately with these new gauges and not have cracks, because everything's going to have a crack in it, especially if you're dealing with shit from the 30s, the 20s, the 40s, the 50s. There's going to be cuts and cracks. Now, granted, you can come in and you can take off one wire at a time and you can heat shrink and seal them up, but just fucking get rid of it. Just rewire the damn thing. And if you can't if wiring a car is not really that difficult. For shit's sake, there's a blueprint right there in front of you that tells you where everything's supposed to go. As long as you didn't buy it from fucking Speedway.
No matter what, just use the proper connections.
Even Speedway has them, but you do not want to buy a $150 fucking wiring harness. You want to spend at least double that for quality shit. We'll get into that down the road. We're going to wrap this fucking conversation up, but just know that the wiring is extremely important.
Very important.
Because upgrading, I mean, you got to remember, you put all this time and effort into something, and you're going to half-ass the wiring, and it's going to fucking burn down. Like, yeah, you don't hear about it, but when you hear about it, it's a shame. You got to put in proper shutoffs, proper anything when it comes to electrical. But, you know, having a good shutoff system, having a system where you got two bungs sticking out somewhere that you can charge it instead of getting to the battery that you stuffed in the fucking trunk. You know, trickle charge system, whatever you want to do with it. These things need to be upgraded. And half-assing and electrical do not go into fall in the same sentence by any means.
Yeah.
You got anything to add to that, Randy?
No, I think we can pretty much wrap up this episode. When you're planning your build, make a decent list of things that you want versus what you need, things that you can afford, and you kind of want to make a...
I tell the client every time we get a new client, I tell them to send me two things besides the signed contract.
Yeah.
So I tell them to send me three things: signed contract, and send me your wish list and your must list. Because your wish list and your must list, they're going to be two different lists. So your wish list is going to be if you were to build your ultimate fucking hot rod, that's what you wish you had. But your must list is what you can either A, afford, or B, can just live with to get by. And that's the list that you want to really look at before you start into the wish list. Because if you just start going into the wish list, you're going to run out of fucking money so damn fast you don't know what to do.
Yeah, and that's what we were talking about earlier about pissing off your wife.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, so just keep all that in mind and just make a good list of everything that you think you're going to need for your build.
As you go along, just mark that shit off, man.
Yeah.
You know, you welded, like, when you get into body work, you can just literally say, okay, cab corners, check, it's done. Fucking this, that, check, it's done. Electrical, check, it's done.
Yeah, the more checks, the better.
Right. And just keep plucking away, man. Just keep plucking away. You know, as simple as it sounds, planning and writing shit down, 98% of the world doesn't do that shit. So be the 2% that fucking does and get the damn hot rod build. How about that? And on that note, this one goes out to you guys. Cheers as always. And we'll catch up with you guys next week. Till then, man, have a good one.
Have a good one. Thanks for listening to this episode of It's All About the Build podcast. Please comment and let us know your thoughts. Subscribe to the channel to follow along, and if you haven't already, check out our Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and TikTok to keep up with what we have going on every week. Thank you all for listening.